Hey everyone, welcome back to OC Recovery's YouTube channel. I have a video up here in the mountains. So if you look, the light's a little off. That is Pikes Peak in the background right there. So that is one of the 58 14ers in Colorado. I've hiked 7 of them. I'm doing an 8th one in 12 days and hopefully getting one more in by the end of the season. So I wanted to come up here. It's one of my first favorite places to be is up in the mountains. I just read, I'm going to journal a little bit after I do this. I think it's just very nice to come up here and just experience nature. And even when I was suffering really badly, I would still come up here because it wouldn't ruin the entire time as many people might believe. It was difficult, but there was things about it that weren't that terrible. So what I wanted to talk about today was, the title of the video is why your progress may have stopped. And there's so much relation to this in my own personal journey and all the things I see when people come in for coaching or on the webinars and questions they're asking me. And I think it's really important to cover some of these things. And we're going to kind of go from the angle of coasting, or go from the angle of the certain particular behaviors that we might be doing, or the things that people unknowingly are saying to us, which out of good intentions they believe are the right things to say, but unfortunately end up being the bad things to hear, because they really kind of set us up for this reassurance seeking cycle. It's almost like a hamster wheel, and the hamster is on the wheel. And if you're hearing cars going back and forth, I'm on a dirt road right here up in the mountains, so we'll probably be interrupted a few times, but that is what it is. It's a beautiful place to do a video. And that hamster wheel, when you're on it, you know, circling and dangling in front of you is the reassurance that people are giving us and the reassurance that we're seeking, and then obviously compulsions, avoidance behaviors, and stuff like that. So the first thing I want to talk about is what is coasting and why most people who believe that they're recovered are coasting. Now, it's important to realize that if you were suffering really badly and got yourself to a place of coasting, that is terrific. That is that's a great accomplishment. There was such a long period of time with my sensory motor where I was coasting, but I was living my life. My lifestyle factors are up. So coasting isn't inherently bad as long as you realize, which isn't easy to do, that you are coasting and it is time to put the work in a little bit more, get a little bit more uncomfortable. And the reason why coasting really is the end for many people's recovery journeys is because A, they don't want to put any more work in. B, they maybe think, I've been uncomfortable for so long, I don't want to get any more uncomfortable. And then C, they really don't know what to do. And that is something that kind of holds many people back because they've done maybe exposures only, or they've only moved with uncertainty. And they've made a bunch of progress, but they haven't made the progress that they're looking for. And that is something that I fell into many times. And eventually what I had to do was get myself to a place where, okay, what am I missing? Okay, what are the things that I need to work on, and how can I actually get myself to the places that I want to go? And all that stuff was really, really critical when it came to actually making progress on my recovery journey. So the first thing I want to talk about, I love it when people are driving by and they're like, oh, what is this guy looking at? The first thing I want to talk about is, in the sense of with the coasting, is why our exposures aren't enough. And the reason why exposures aren't enough is because exposures don't mean unconditional acceptance. So let me give you an example. Let's say you have ROCD and you are doing an exposure based around watching a documentary on divorce. Well, the thing is, that documentary doesn't actually address your worst case scenario. And your worst case scenario is, if for XY reason, if my relationship ends, it would be the worst thing ever. And because you still hold that belief, that will need to be broken down with acceptance. But one of the biggest misconceptions is that exposures equal unconditional acceptance, but they don't. So an exposure for fear of fear and the fear of feeling anxiety would be going out there, living your life again, bringing it with you, showing yourself that you can wear anxiety. But that doesn't touch unconditional life acceptance that you may never recover for whatever reasons, because we can't get certainty. So when someone really understands unconditional self-life other acceptance, like I would say myself, because of the years of practicing it, it's very obvious to see that exposures and unconditional self-life other acceptance complement each other greatly, but they are certainly in no way, shape, or form the same thing. So let's say another example, harm OCD, self-harm, suicide OCD, and the person is really afraid of losing control. So what they do is they do the typical exposures where maybe they hold a knife, then hold a knife closer to the wrist, and eventually hold a knife up to their neck, whoever's doing this exposure hierarchy with you. But if they don't address the fear of potentially losing control, what actually happens is the person doesn't reach the goals that they want to get to, because that fear of losing control. You can see a lot of dirt bikes up here. This place is fucking awesome. You really realize that it's not the same thing. They complement each other, but there's many people who don't actually get to where they want to get to because they didn't actually address unconditional self-life other acceptance. Take body dysmorphia. I would extra work out, then not work out, and try to prove to myself why it was okay to work out. Then I would overeat, then undereat, and do all this. But the thing, I never actually accepted myself unconditionally. And that is something that really took me a very long time to realize. I had to realize that the exposures for being balanced with the gym, the exposures of not running a program, not counting my reps were all critical. But if I never accepted myself unconditionally, that would never lead me to where I wanted to get. And that understanding principle was critical, absolutely 100% vital for my recovery process. The second thing I want to talk about is we are continually told reassurance. So I'm going to give you the main ones. If someone is telling you you are the least likely to do that, if someone is telling you that you're a good person or you are not a bad person, and unfortunately, as someone who loves research, I've read numerous studies of exercise physiology and nutrition. It's in my career field, but research is very conditional the way that people hold it. Research is also suggestive. It's not a law. So this is a law. This is gravity. That happens every time repeatedly in this universe. Research is suggestive at best. People who understand research truly will understand the biasm in all research and all the methodology flaws that are conducted. And since there's no objective way, like a nerve conduction study test, like OCD, the research is highly subjective at best, because you're dealing with people with no objective scans, only like markers on pieces of paper from subjective outcomes. Subjective is what the person tells you, like a pain scale. It's just very, very, doesn't really do anything because the perception drives it all. So when people say stuff like research shows that exposure is the gold standard, maybe, but it's not real. It's not the reality of what we see. The reason thousands of people come in from all over the place is because they've realized that exposures are key, they're important, but they are no longer the gold standard. And whether the research supports that or not doesn't really matter, because we know it works by seeing people make astronomically better progress from exposures and unconditional self-life other acceptance. So to just say that exposures are the gold standard is a major misunderstanding. It's a disservice to the sufferers, and the sufferers are starting to catch on. Many people have known this, but now larger amounts of people are watching our content and seeing this and realizing, hey, this guy, it sounds like he's inside my head. Listen, chronic OCD is not easy to understand, and this is the example I give. Let's go a month. If I told you you were going to lose your vision for a month, but it was going to come back in 30 days, you wouldn't be that scared because you knew it was coming back. With OCD, because of the chronicity of it when the tools aren't applied, chronicity comes from not doing the tools or the work required, the uncertainty of never knowing when you're going to recover is the driving factor of what drives people to all the compulsive avoidance behaviors and how real it feels. If I told you right now that you were going to recover in 1 year, I guarantee you, and you knew for sure, the load would lift. This is why the uncertainty aspect of, oh, I might not never recover. How can I turn this hardship into a positive moment? I probably have to work on that with unconditional self-life other acceptance, because the exposure will only get me so far. Now, when people say again those things like the research shows, they're usually using that in a context of this is why this is the truth, but there is no truth in any of that. And it's difficult to hear that because so many people have been told that. Another one is, say, scrupulosity or religious OCD. And that could be very, very distressing. All OCD is distressing because it attacks the thing we care about the most, morals and values. But if someone is telling you you're the least likely person to do that, or you're going to, God will forgive you and so forth, they are giving you reassurance. I'm going to be very blunt here. I go through lots of OCD posts, and 99.9 of them are giving you reassurance. It's not, they're not waking up and saying, okay, I'm going to give all these people reassurance and fuck them up. They're not saying that. It's just they don't understand. And then human nature is when we hear new things, because humans don't like change. Humans do not like admitting when they're wrong. I did not like admitting when I was wrong. I still don't like admitting when I'm wrong, but it's very beneficial to admit when you're wrong. The third thing I want to talk about and why your progress has probably stopped or you're not seeing the results that you probably want to see is you're not putting the continual work in, which means maybe you only halfway read the books. Maybe you skimmed them. Maybe you never actually disputed on paper. Maybe you never actually made OCD recovery a major priority in your life, which means you didn't make it the only priority in your life, but you did make it a priority in your life. And that is something that is vital to understand, a mistake I made numerous times. Again, it doesn't have to be the only priority in your life. Another thing I hear, and this ties directly into this, people will tell you have to work on OCD all day long. That is nonsense, and that will keep you stuck and force that perpetuated cycle of trying to force acceptance. I hear it all the time. I tried this, I tried that, I tried this. I can hear it in their tone. I can see it in the way that they're saying it. The reason why it's not working is not because you're treatment resistant or it doesn't work. It's not working because you think in your mind there are tools to rid. I'm going to use this to rid. It's not. These are tools, and this is a simple misunderstanding. We all make this mistake. I've made this mistake. This is this. You are doing that. When someone says to me, CBT didn't work for me, what they're saying is, I tried it, I probably didn't do it correctly or wasn't explained correctly, and I'm not better, so fuck it. But that's not how this works, and that's so key. This plays directly into point number 4, which is you're forcing acceptance. So when we force acceptance, that can be a video of hours of length. But usually what's happening is the person is uncomfortable in a moment, and they're disputing per moment, right? And they're disputing thoughts. Remember, OCD recovery, OCD takes orders from beliefs, not thoughts. So when people are telling you about thoughts and this and that, the thoughts are, if you're getting a constant intrusive thought for years about using myself, the fear of being stuck with sensory motor, there's probably a belief that if I notice my sensations for the rest of my life is ruined. So those intrusive thoughts, images, sensation, and urges, as Paul Little has explained beautifully, are usually blueprints to what's going on in your life. If you're cutting things out of your life and they're starting to really affect you, those things are probably giving you a blueprint to what could or may not be going wrong. And that is vital. It really is a doorway, an open doorway into how to break down your beliefs or point you in the right direction. It's not a 1-to-1 ratio, but it's a pretty good chance if you're constantly having intrusive thoughts about death, you more than likely have a fear about death. And that is something subtle, yet mistakes that many, 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 many people make. And I've made it numerous times myself. So those are really the major things that are more than likely keeping you in that coasting phase and why you're not making progress. And the very last thing I want to talk about is lifestyle factor. And that is why I'm up here in the mountains. And the reason why I'm up here in the mountains is because the mountains mean a lot to me. I was born and raised in Jersey, and then I lived in Florida. I'm going to straighten this up a little bit. I lived in Florida for 10 years for undergrad and grad school. And what I realized was I no longer liked Florida. I didn't like it 100% bad. I just wanted something more outdoorsy with nature. So I came out to Colorado and fell in love. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because of the lifestyle factors. Are you working? Are you exercising in balance? Are you eating in moderation? Are you trying to be balanced in all other aspects of your life? This is something that can't be overlooked because it's such a subtle thing. And when you're doing these behaviors, it's a very, very easy way to show yourself that you can bring discomfort with you. And if you don't bring discomfort with you, then what kind of tends to happen is we allow that low frustration tolerance to build and build and build and build. And then as that low frustration tolerance is building, our lifestyle factors go to shit. So caffeine isn't inherently bad. Social media is not inherently bad. Alcohol is not inherently bad unless you struggle with it, and that's not what we're talking about. And all the things that people are telling you are black and white. One of my favorite quotes ever, which comes from Stoicism in its own little way, is nothing is black and white except for the fact that humans live and then they die. Their body dies. And everything else is open to interpretation and perception, but belief systems and so forth. So maybe these are the reasons why you're not recovering. These are the big ones I wanted to talk about, the big 5. There's many other reasons why you might not be recovering, all the way from, little things like compulsively watching YouTube videos, compulsively running to our page anytime you feel discomfort, compulsively using certain things, avoiding social situations. I mean, this video can go on forever, but these are the main ones I wanted to talk about. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Comment down below, ask me questions. Hey, Nick, or do you think this is a problem? If not, and we'll kind of break it down a little bit. I'm very active with people on the YouTube channel. I love speaking to you all around the world, and I hope my content has been a great guide for many of you. If you have no hope, there's plenty of hope. I was in the mental hospital. I didn't want to be here. I wanted to die, and I'm here now and living my life, you know, with my work, with my wife, still constantly trying to change things that maybe hinder me in little tiny ways here and there, life stuff, the way I kind of don't accept my friends at times because we have differing opinions, little things. And this is a lifelong journey. It takes a while to change your belief systems based around unconditional acceptance. But it is important to continue to work on it. Remember, if you're interested in certain webinars, please email info@ocdrecovery.com. When you email info@ocdrecovery.com, just ask, hey, these are the things that I'm looking for. I'm wondering about the webinar services coming up. We have an OCD recovery part 1, 2, and 3 coming up. We're going to kind of, you know, the first one, we're going to break down like what's going on with OCD, the beginning, what to do. I don't know what's going on. Part 2 will be like a lot of the meat and potatoes of like chronic anxiety, fear of fear, certain exposures you could set for yourself, so forth and so forth. Or part 3 will more than likely be a little bit more targeted to the morals and the values, shame and guilt, scrupulosity, OCD, false memory, real event. And those are the more specifics. It's not that they're harder to recover from, but there's a little bit more detail into chronic guilt and shame that many people are missing. Instead of just, hey, I have fear, being anxious forever, which is still super distressing. So thank you so much for watching. And as always, have a great day. And I highly recommend, let's end it real quick with this. Let's go over here to this rock. Oh, and there goes the sun. I highly recommend, if you ever get the chance to come out to Colorado, it's beautiful. I love it here. And as always, have a great day.